Today we're talking about a country that has gone from a land marked by poverty and famine to one of the biggest powers in the world, if not the biggest. A country that, in just a few decades, has achieved unprecedented economic development, becoming the engine of the global economy. We're talking about China, the Asian giant. But how did it become so powerful? How did it go from a population that could barely survive to being the factory and the technological brain of the world? Does it still have room to grow? And will it manage to surpass the United States as the leading global power? Get comfortable, because this fascinating story begins here. To understand the rise of China, we have to go back to 1927 when the Chinese Civil War began, a conflict that pitted the communists against the nationalists for over 2 decades. In between, China also had to face the invasion of Japan during World War II, a period of devastation that left the country in ruins. Finally, in 1949, the communists led by Mao Zedong defeated the nationalists and proclaimed the People's Republic of China. The nationalists, meanwhile, took refuge in Taiwan. When Mao came to power, he inherited a country ravaged by war, underdeveloped and with hardly any industry. But instead of leading China towards progress, the policies he implemented were an absolute disaster. The most extreme case was the so-called Great Chinese Famine between 1958 and 1961, caused largely by Mao's reforms. This tragic episode left between 15 and 55 million dead, becoming one of the worst man-made humanitarian disasters. After Mao's death in 1976, China desperately needed a change. While the West prospered, China was falling further and further behind. It was then that, in 1978, Deng Xiaoping came to power, a leader who understood that to survive, China had to adopt certain practices of capitalism, but always under strict state control. Deng Xiaoping implemented 3 key pillars in his economic reforms: the gradual privatization of the economy, the introduction of competition in the markets, and the opening up to foreign investment. His plan began in a small fishing village called Shenzhen, which was declared the first special economic zone. The experiment was a resounding success. Shenzhen went from a town of 30,000 inhabitants with an average annual income of $1 to a metropolis of over 10 million people with an average income of $30,000 a year. The Chinese government replicated this model in other cities, popularizing the slogan, "One country, two systems." The special economic zones allowed attracting foreign investment and turning China into the factory of the world, producing goods at ultra-competitive prices. In the following decades, these reforms lifted 600 million people out of extreme poverty. The Chinese economy grew at an average annual rate of 9.5% for 40 years, something practically unheard of in history. Deng Xiaoping's initial push not only transformed the Chinese economy, but also changed the mentality of its leaders and citizens. Deng's successors, Jiang Zemin and Hu Jintao, optimized the model, making China's GDP surpass that of several European powers and accumulating the world's largest foreign exchange reserves. However, as the economy grew and the middle class emerged, Chinese factories began to lose competitiveness to countries like Bangladesh or India, where costs were lower. It was then that Hu Jintao and his successor, Xi Jinping, decided to bet on a change of course: scientific and technological development. With Xi Jinping at the helm since 2012, policies have focused on 3 main objectives: strengthening the nation, improving the quality of life of citizens, and eradicating corruption. Under his leadership, more than 200,000 public officials were prosecuted for corruption, which strengthened the confidence of the lower and middle classes in the government. Today, China is transforming its economy, moving from being a country based on cheap manufacturing to leading high-tech sectors such as artificial intelligence, robotics, pharmaceuticals, and defense. In addition, the country has begun to rely more on its own domestic market, driven by a growing middle class with greater purchasing power. Another pillar of China's rise is its focus on global trade. The New Silk Road, one of Xi Jinping's most ambitious initiatives, seeks to connect China with the rest of the world through a gigantic infrastructure network. This initiative includes railway routes to Europe, oil and gas pipelines to Central Asia, and strategic ports in Africa and Latin America. To finance this mega project, China plans to invest between $4 and $8 trillion, consolidating its position as the main trading partner of many countries. This strategy not only reduces China's dependence on trade with the United States, its main global rival, but also gives it an advantage in its goal of becoming the world's leading power. However, the road to the top is not without its challenges. China faces problems such as a possible real estate bubble, the aging of its population, and the need to address its alarming level of pollution. In 2019, China emitted more polluting gases than all other developed countries combined. Moreover, although it has abandoned its one-child policy, population growth remains a challenge, as the country must find a balance between maintaining its workforce and managing the aging of its society. On the other hand, China will have to deal with increasing geopolitical tensions, especially in the South China Sea and in its relationship with Taiwan. Furthermore, its growing military spending, although necessary to balance forces with the United States, could become a significant economic burden in the long term. China has come a long way from the famines of the mid-20th century to become the power it is today. Its combination of economic reforms, technological innovation, and an aggressive trade strategy position it as the main rival of the United States in the struggle for global leadership. But will China manage to surpass the United States? Will it be able to maintain its growth and deal with the challenges it faces? Leave us your opinion in the comments. And if you liked the video, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, give it a like and activate the bell so you don't miss our next content. See you next time.